The observation deck of Admiral Zexterral's command vessel fell silent as Europa disintegrated. The crystalline structures that had housed humanity's first deep space colony collapsed inward before erupting in a plume of ice and debris. Tactical Officer Krell Voss watched her superior with growing unease. The Admiral's face scales had darkened, a sign of pleasure among the Quilloth. "Replay the destruction sequence," ordered Zexterral, his secondary eyelids fluttering. "Magnify Sector 4. The holographic display zoomed in on a portion of the colony where humans had been visible moments before impact, families rushing toward evacuation pods they would never reach. One child had been looking directly toward the approaching energy beam, as if sensing the coming doom. The preemptive strike was necessary, Zexterral announced to his bridge crew. Our predictive models showed a 93% probability that these humans would achieve weapons parity within 70 years. Their creative capacity exceeds all previously documented species. Krell Voss knew better than to question an admiral openly, but her inner membrane flushed with doubt. "Sir, should we not await council authorization before departing the system? Their monitoring stations will have detected our presence." Zexterral dismissed her concern with a flick of his ceremonial talon. "By the time the council convenes a session, we will have compiled irrefutable evidence of the human threat. Their rapid technological advancement curves alone justify intervention under Statute 7219. The ship's communication array chimed, its tone indicating a priority message. The Admiral's confidence faltered momentarily as the unmistakable signature of the Hegemony Council appeared. "That was faster than anticipated," he muttered. On Earth, the first indications of disaster came through the Jupiter monitoring station. Dr. Haruki Yamamoto, night shift supervisor at the Deep Space Communications Center in Kyoto, initially dismissed the radiation spike as instrument error. When 3 redundant systems confirmed the reading, he initiated the emergency protocol with trembling hands. "Get me the Secretary General," he instructed his assistant, "and pull all telescope arrays in the outer system to focus on Europa." Within 30 minutes, grainy footage arrived showing the aftermath. Where Europa's human settlement had stood, only a darkened crater remained. Initial assessments suggested a meteor strike, but the trajectory data showed no incoming objects of sufficient mass. Dr. Eleanor Wright at the Quantum Signals Laboratory in Cape Town was the first to detect the anomaly. Her experimental deep space scanner, designed to detect ripples in spacetime from FTL travel, had recorded multiple signatures near Jupiter moments before Europa's destruction. "These are artificial," she whispered to her research team as they analyzed the patterns. Someone was there. The evidence trickled in over the next 12 hours. Radiation consistent with directed energy weapons, quantum disturbances matching no known natural phenomenon, and finally, fragments of communications intercepted by the Mars relay station. The alien language was unintelligible, but the mathematical patterns underlying it were unmistakable signs of intelligent origin. In Washington, Beijing, New Delhi, and other capitals, leaders gathered in emergency sessions. Humanity had just suffered its first extraterrestrial attack, and 15,000 colonists had been erased without warning or explanation. General Marcus Chen, whose daughter had been Europa's chief medical officer, stood stoically before the United Nations Security Council. His voice betrayed no emotion as he delivered the final confirmation. "We are not alone," he stated, "and we are not safe. The Europa colony was deliberately targeted by an advanced civilization with technology far beyond our current capabilities. Our existence has been noticed, and apparently, some among the stars have judged humanity unworthy of that existence." The silence that followed was deafening. Humanity stood at a crossroads, facing an enemy they couldn't yet comprehend, with stakes higher than any conflict in their turbulent history. Jacob Chen stared at the alien communication patterns scrolling across his lab's main display. 3 days without sleep had left him hollow-eyed, but grief had carved deeper hollows still. The message from Europa's emergency beacon, his wife's final transmission, played on a continuous loop in his earpiece. "The device is nearly operational," announced Dr. Fatma Nazari, sliding a cup of tea beside him. She'd lost her brother in the attack and had been working alongside Chen since the first alien transmissions were intercepted. The quantum entanglement matrix is stable. If your theory is correct, we can piggyback our signal on their own communication network. Chen nodded absently, his focus on the alien data streams. Their encryption is elegant, he murmured, but it follows mathematical principles universal to all communication. The redundancies, there and there. He highlighted patterns within the alien transmissions. Those are our entry points. General Okonkwo entered the secure laboratory beneath Cheyenne Mountain, accompanied by representatives from 7 nations. The visitors wore expressions ranging from skepticism to desperate hope. Dr. Chen, Okonkwo addressed him directly. These officials need to understand exactly what your device will accomplish. Our diplomatic options are limited while the aliens deny involvement in Europa's destruction. Chen rose, his lanky frame unfolding from the workstation. For the first time in days, his gaze cleared as he addressed the visitors. The hegemony, that's what they call themselves according to our translation algorithms, communicates through a network of quantum relays. Their technology is centuries beyond ours, but they've grown complacent. He activated a holographic display showing the network his team had mapped. Their security focuses on keeping information inside their coalition. They never anticipated someone broadcasting in. The Chinese representative frowned. What exactly are you proposing to send? The truth, Chen replied simply. Unedited footage of Europa's destruction, translated context about the colony's peaceful nature, and evidence of the hegemony vessel's involvement. Their leadership is concealing the attack from their own people. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Turns out alien politicians lie to their constituents too. At a monitoring station in Kenya, Lieutenant Amara Okafor tracked the first successful test transmission. The quantum device Chen's team had built consumed enough energy to briefly dim lights across 3 states, but the results appeared on her screen immediately. Confirmation received, she reported over the secure channel. Test packet successfully inserted into their network. We've reached what appears to be a civilian hub in a system approximately 17 light-years from Earth. In the White House Situation Room, President Santos reviewed the intelligence with her crisis team. The Hegemony Council continues to deny official authorization for the attack while offering vague regrets for the actions of a rogue commander, she summarized. Meanwhile, their ships have established position at the edge of our solar system. They're assessing whether to finish what they started, Defense Secretary Williams concluded grimly. Then we proceed with Operation Memory, Santos decided. If direct confrontation means extinction, we'll fight asymmetrically. Dr. Chen's device deploys in 12 hours. Back in the laboratory, Chen made final adjustments to the broadcast package. Alongside Europa's destruction footage, he included personal messages from families of the dead, historical records of human artistic and scientific achievements, and carefully selected works that showcased humanity's capacity for empathy and ethical reasoning. They tried to erase us from the galaxy, he told Dr. Nazari as they initiated the final sequence. Instead, they've ensured that every sentient being within 100 light-years will know our story. The transmission launched, riding alien communications networks like a digital ghost. Impossible to track, impossible to stop. Across countless worlds, screens flickered with images of Europa's final moments, followed by the faces of those who had been lost. The whispers of revenge had begun, but they spoke not with weapons, but with truth. The Grand Hall emptied as Ambassador Tilon led the exodus, leaving the remaining council members in stunned silence. The ancient chamber, designed to amplify authority through architectural intimidation, now seemed cavernous and hollow. Supreme Counselor Xenbear of the Meridian Collective rose from her elevated seat, her bioluminescent patches pulsing with agitation. This human situation has escalated beyond acceptable parameters, she announced, her translator converting her ultrasonic speech to standard galactic common. Who authorized this broadcast that has so inflamed our members? The hegemony's chief information director, a cybernetically enhanced Volturian named Peltorax, trembled visibly as he stepped forward. The transmission originated within our own network, Eminence. The humans somehow piggyback on our quantum relays, something our security protocols deemed theoretically impossible. Nothing is impossible for creatures who evolved as prey animals, interjected War Commander Zex Terrell, his voice carrying the distinctive rasp of Quilloth's superiority. Their minds developed to anticipate predator behavior. Now they use that evolutionary quirk to disrupt our civilization. In the antechamber outside the council hall, Talon conferred with the representatives of the 6 species who had followed the Vex departure. The Lyrian diplomat, whose skin had shifted to the deep purple of solemn resolve, touched foreheads with Telon in the traditional gesture of alliance. "The images from Europa haunt my dreams," she whispered. 15,000 souls extinguished to satisfy one commander's paranoia. And the council responds with mere censure. "The hegemony has lost its moral compass," agreed the crystalline Nen philosopher delegate, his facets refracting light into complex patterns that supplemented his speech. "For too long, we have privileged stability over justice. These humans expose our hypocrisy by simply showing us our own actions." Talon's 4 eyes blinked in synchronization as he formulated his response. "Then we must establish a new order based on principles the hegemony has forgotten, beginning with accountability for acts of unprovoked aggression." The meeting that followed lasted 17 standard hours, with representatives transmitting to their homeworlds for consultation. By its conclusion, the Justice Coalition had drafted its founding charter, with provisions for mutual defense, ethical governance, and, most controversially, outreach to humanity. Meanwhile, on the Kuloth fortress world of Karish Prime, War Commander Zex Terrell reviewed tactical projections with his inner circle. The holographic display showed spreading civilian unrest across 37 hegemony worlds. "The human infection spreads," he growled, slashing his talon through a particularly troubling protest visualization from the Volturian homeworld. "Their emotional appeals bypass rational thought processes. They weaponize compassion itself." Strategic Director Mev Corlin, his scales bearing the distinctive pattern of the elite military caste, studied the intelligence reports with narrowed eyes. "The Coalition representatives have dispatched an envoy to Earth. They seek formal alliance with these humans." Zex Terrell's membrane ridge inflated with barely contained fury. "Impossible. The technological disparity would make such an alliance meaningless. What could humans possibly offer advanced civilizations?" "Perspective," replied Mev Corlin quietly, "and moral clarity we have perhaps lost over millennia of unchallenged dominance." The War Commander's tail lashed violently, knocking a junior officer aside. "Sentiment from you as well. Perhaps the human contagion spreads faster than we realized." He activated his command interface, bypassing standard authorization protocols. "Prepare a strike force. If the Coalition wishes to embrace humanity, they will share humanity's fate." Across the galaxy, the first diplomatic shuttle from the newly formed Justice Coalition entered Earth's solar system, escorted by Vex defensive cruisers. Their transmission reached the United Earth Command Center. "We come seeking alliance against those who would eliminate species for convenience. Your voices have been heard. You are no longer alone." For the first time since Europa's destruction, hope flickered across human faces as they gathered to receive their first alien allies. Lieutenant Sophia Mendez extracted herself from the neural interface, gasping as her consciousness separated from the alien network. The transition always felt like surfacing from deep water, disorienting and slightly painful. Around her, the Coalition's stealth vessel maintained its position in the shadow of a hegemony communication satellite, hidden by technology that bent light and other sensing waves around its hull. "Transmission complete," she reported, accepting a hydration pack from her Lyrian teammate, whose name translated roughly to Dawn Chorus. "The truth cascade is propagating through their tertiary networks. They'll struggle to contain it without shutting down essential services." Commander Hikaru Tanaka studied the tactical display where a representation of the hegemony information grid glowed with spreading indicators of the human data package. The Nen were right. Their systems prioritize information flow over security. They never anticipated an insurgency of ideas. Dawn Chorus's skin rippled with approval patterns. Your species has a remarkable capacity for what we call narrative warfare. You instinctively understand how stories reshape perception. We've had plenty of practice on each other, Mendez replied with a grim smile. Propaganda, marketing, political campaigns. Humans have been manipulating other humans with stories since we invented language. In the command deck of the Coalition flagship *Righteous Cause*, Admiral Velkorian of the Vex reviewed the latest intelligence with General Maya Okonkwo. The holographic star map between them highlighted systems where hegemony control was weakening. War Commander Zex Terrell has consolidated his fleet at these junctions, Velkorian indicated with a gesture that sent ripples through the hologram. He anticipates our military advance, but seems blind to the true nature of our strategy. Okonkwo nodded. The Quilloth military doctrine focuses on overwhelming force applied to critical targets. They struggle to counter distributed, asymmetric approaches. She highlighted civilian population centers throughout hegemony space. Our transmission teams have reached 64% of their major worlds. Public demonstrations have erupted on 23. The Hegemony Council is fracturing further, Velkorian added. 4 more species have requested neutrality status in the past standard week. The Admiral's compound eyes fixed on Okonkwo. I must ask, how did your species develop such effective information warfare techniques without access to interstellar networks? We learned it from our own history, Okonkwo replied. Powerful empires have fallen not just to superior weapons, but to superior ideas that undermine their legitimacy. The Quilloth believe technological supremacy guarantees victory, but Earth's history taught us otherwise. On the Quilloth command vessel Evolutionary Imperative War Commander Zex Terrell reviewed the increasingly troubling reports from intelligence officers. His inner circle had shrunk as several advisors have been executed for contamination by human mimetic influences. The neutral systems continue to provide sanctuary for human transmission teams, reported Security Director Gen Vex. Traditional intimidation tactics prove ineffective against species who have viewed the Europa footage. They cite moral imperatives above pragmatic self-interest. Zex Terrell's scales darkened with fury. They choose extinction, then prepare the planet killer for deployment against the Lyrian homeworld. If compassion is their weakness, let us exploit it. When the Coalition rushes to defend the Lyrians, we will spring our trap. Security Director Gen Vex hesitated, mandibles clicking in what might have been nervousness. Commander, such an escalation might push remaining neutral systems toward the Coalition. We risk uniting the galaxy against us. Then we shall face a united galaxy and still triumph, Zex Terrell snarled. The strong survive. The evolutionary vanguard has guided our ascendance for millennia. We will not be undone by primitive mammals who have barely mastered interplanetary travel. As the Quilloth fleet began its ominous deployment, Coalition intelligence teams intercepted the movement. Across the invisible battlefield of information and influence, humanity's greatest weapon continued its unstoppable advance. The simple, devastating power of truth. The Lyrian concert hall fell silent as the final notes of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony faded. For several heartbeats, no one moved. Then, as if released from a spell, the audience erupted in displays of emotional response, their translucent skin cycling through colors representing wonder, revelation, and profound connection. Conductor Mikhail Petrov lowered his baton, visibly moved by the alien audience's reaction to a composition created centuries ago on a distant planet. Ambassador Elena Reyes watched from a private box, accompanied by the Lyrian cultural minister, whose name translated as Reflection of Distant Stars. Your music contains conflict within harmony, the minister observed, her skin pulsing with analytical blue patterns. The composer suffered. yet created beauty from that suffering. This resonates deeply with my people. Beethoven was deaf when he composed this, Rice explained. He never heard it performed, except in his mind. The minister's skin rippled with astonishment. Creation without sensory perception. This contradicts hegemony teachings about limitation and capability. She hesitated. The educational restrictions on human cultural transmission make more sense now. Your art destabilizes certainties. Across coalition space, similar revelations unfolded as human cultural ambassadors shared music, literature, dance, and philosophy with alien audiences. Earth's history, filled with tragedy yet persistently striving toward beauty and meaning, struck chords with species who had known the hegemony's sanitized stability for millennia. On the coalition military vessel Principal Defense Director Chen reviewed reports from these cultural exchanges with General Okonkwo and the NEN strategic advisor known as Crystal Facet 16. The impact exceeds our projections, Chen noted, scrolling through statistics on his tablet. Requests for human cultural materials have increased 700% in just one standard month. Black market transmissions within hegemony space shows similar growth. We anticipated military confrontation, the crystalline NEN observed, facets shifting to indicate analytical processes. Instead, you provide perspective reframing. The Quilloth cannot intercept or destroy ideas. Okonkwo nodded. Bullets can be stopped by shields. Stories pass through them. On the Quilloth colony world, Suberkal, Junior Officer Mev Thren risked his career and possibly his life by attending an underground gathering. The converted maintenance tunnel housed 30 young Quilloth, all military cased, all technically committing treason by their presence. The human artifact being displayed was a visual recording of something called Romeo and Juliet, adapted by the Coalition's cultural division, specifically for Quilloth neural patterns. The concept of rival families destroying themselves through hatred, while their youngest members sought connection, contradicted everything. Mev Thren had been taught about conflict resolution through dominance. The humans understand us better than we understand ourselves, whispered his clutchmate as the story concluded. They have experienced our struggles and transcended them, while our leaders keep us trapped in primitive aggression cycles. Mev Thren's scales shifted with dangerous thoughts. The evolutionary vanguard teaches that strength alone ensures survival. Yet these humans demonstrate adaptive thinking and empathic strategy, traits our leadership dismisses as weakness. More gather each cycle, his companion confirmed. The younger officers especially. We were promised glory through conquest. Instead, we face endless war against ideas that feel more compelling than our own doctrines. As they departed separately, avoiding security patrols, Mev Thren made his decision. The Coalition needed to know that not all Quilloth supported War Commander Zex Terrell's genocidal vision. The seeds of rebellion were germinating even within the species that had sparked the conflict. Back on Earth, Director Chen received the first encrypted message from within the Quilloth military hierarchy. We are not all your enemies. The young question. Help us question louder. The art of rebellion was working in ways no weapon could match. Dr. Krenvar's talons clicked nervously against the metal table as she reviewed the security footage from the Evolutionary Vanguard's restricted archives. The Coalition intelligence team around her, 3 humans, a Vex analyst, and a Lyrian communications specialist, watched in stunned silence as the evidence mounted. This recording dates from the Praxian extinction, she explained, voice barely above a whisper despite the secure facility's protection. 376 years ago, the Praxians developed a unique form of collective decision-making that the Vanguard deemed destabilizing to hierarchical order. The footage showed a thriving civilization of avian-like beings systematically destroyed by weapons identical to those used against Europa. Admiral Zhou of Earth Fleet Command leaned forward, his weathered face grim. How many species have they eliminated? He asked. 17 documented cases over the past millennium, Krenvar replied, always with the same justification. species whose social or technological evolution threatened Qoloth dominance within the hegemony. Her scales paled with shame. My people believe these worlds died from natural disasters or their own technological failures. The Vanguard maintains absolute information control. Dr. Eliza Washington, Earth's foremost xenobiologist, studied the genetic data Krenvar had brought. These species were all developing along different evolutionary paths than the Qoloth. Their neural structures show heightened capacity for cooperation rather than competition. She looked up, eyes widening. Like humans. Precisely, confirmed Krenvar. Your species' brain architecture emphasizes social connection, abstract problem-solving, and adaptability. Traits the Vanguard considers dangerous. She projected a classified Qoloth military assessment of human psychology. What terrifies them most is your unpredictability. Qoloth strategy relies on opponents following logical response patterns. Humans regularly defy those patterns. Admiral Zhao exchanged glances with the Vex intelligence officer. That explains why our asymmetric approach has been effective. They anticipate conventional military responses, not information warfare. More importantly, Krenvar continued, accessing the most sensitive files from her stolen data crystal. I have the complete technical specifications for hegemony defensive systems. Her talent traced the schematics of advanced shield generators and weapons platforms. Every vulnerability, every override sequence, every emergency protocol. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. With this information, coalition forces could neutralize hegemony technological advantages. The balance of power would fundamentally shift. Why are you doing this? Asked Alina Chen, granddaughter of the resistance leader, and now humanity's chief diplomat to the coalition. You're betraying your own species. Krenvar's secondary eyelids closed briefly in a gesture of grief. I'm saving it. The Vanguard has led us down a path of spiritual corruption. We were once philosophers and artists before the military caste seized complete control. She projected one final file, ancient Qoloth musical compositions and poetry. This was our true heritage before fear consumed us. In the adjacent communications center, specialists prepared to broadcast Krenvar's testimony throughout coalition space and into hegemony territory. The footage of previously unknown genocides, coupled with evidence of the evolutionary Vanguard's manipulations, would shatter whatever legitimacy the Hegemony Council still maintained. We should prepare for their reaction, Admiral Zhou warned. When this broadcasts, Zex Terrell will launch everything he has. It's their extinction, or ours now. Krenvar's scales shifted to the deep blue of resolve. Not extinction. Transformation. Many Qoloth will stand against the Vanguard when they learn the truth. She manipulated the holographic controls with practiced precision. The young already question. Now the elders will have cause to join them. The broadcast initiated, streaming across the quantum network Jacob Chen had created. Across 20,000 worlds, beings of countless species watched as centuries of deception unraveled through the testimony of a scientist who had chosen truth over loyalty. Captain James Okoye pressed his palm against the final security scanner outside the Hegemony Central Archives core chamber. The genetic disguise crafted from Dr. Krenvar's tissue samples triggered the expected response, but also activated a silent alarm that rippled through the station's security grid. We've got company, warned Lieutenant Nasira Raman, monitoring the security feeds through her neural interface. Multiple response teams converging. Estimated time to intercept, 7 minutes. Okoye maintained his composure as the massive vault doors parted, revealing a chamber that housed the unfiltered history of galactic civilization. Unlike the public archives that dotted hegemony space, this repository contained the true records, uncensored, unaltered, and devastating in their implications. Begin the upload, he ordered communications specialist Torres. Focus on the priority files Dr. Krenvar identified. Torres connected their specialized transmitter to the archive's main interface, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. Initiating data extraction. The quantum compression algorithm is working. Transmitting to coalition relays now. Outside the archive station, the diversionary attack proceeded according to plan. Coalition forces under Admiral Velkorian engaged the Hegemony Defense Fleet with precise tactical strikes, designed not to destroy but to distract. The Vex and Lyrian vessels executed intricate maneuvers that kept the Hegemony forces responding to threats away from the archive station. General Okonkwo monitored the operation from the Coalition command vessel, her attention divided between the military engagement and Okoi's infiltration team. "Status on the archive extraction?" she inquired. 37% complete, reported her aide. "But security protocols have activated inside the station. The self-destruct sequence has begun." Inside the archive, warning klaxons blared as red emergency lighting bathed the chamber. A mechanical voice announced in multiple languages, "Unauthorized access detected. Archive preservation protocols initiated. Complete data purge and facility sterilization will commence in 300 seconds. They're trying to destroy the evidence," Okoi realized, "even at the cost of their own historical records." Torres worked frantically, her neural implants glowing as she interfaced directly with the transmitter, downloading as fast as the system allows. 62% complete. "Security teams have reached level 3, reported Ramen. "We have 2 minutes before they breach this chamber." Okoi made his decision. Change of plan. Target the distribution algorithms themselves. "We don't need all the data. We need the mechanisms to release what we have." Torres nodded, shifting her focus. Within seconds, she had isolated the Hegemony's emergency broadcasting protocols, systems designed to transmit critical information simultaneously to every connected world in the event of catastrophic threats. "Found it," she announced. "The override codes are similar to what Dr. Krenvar provided. I can trigger an emergency broadcast using their own authentication." "Do it," ordered Okoi as the countdown continued. "Then prepare for immediate extraction." Torres's fingers blurred across the interface, executing the commands that would turn the Hegemony's own infrastructure against it. Broadcast initiated. The data packages are flowing through their emergency channels, completely bypassing censorship filters. The chamber doors shuddered as security teams attempted to force entry. Okoi activated the team's emergency teleportation devices, experimental technology based on NEN phase-shifting principles. "Mission accomplished," he confirmed as their molecules began to disassemble. "The truth is free." Across 20,000 worlds, regular Hegemony broadcasts interrupted without warning. Citizens of countless species received the unfiltered history of their civilization. The manipulations, the extinctions, the lies that had maintained power structures for millennia. The archive's most damning secrets unfurled like a wave of revelation that could never be recalled. The station erupted in flames behind them, but it no longer mattered. The knowledge it had contained now belonged to the galaxy. As the signing ceremony concluded, representatives from 300 species filed past the memorial wall where names of the Europa colonists had been etched in materials from their homeworlds. Ambassador Elena Chen remained at the podium, watching as former war commander Zex Terrell approached the wall with evident difficulty. His once proud posture now stooped with age and the burden of recognition. The rehabilitation program had been controversial. Many humans had opposed allowing the architect of Europa's destruction any path to redemption. Yet the NEN philosophers had argued persuasively that transformation, not punishment, would truly honor the dead. They were botanists, engineers, teachers. Zex Terrell spoke softly, tracing the name of a 7-year-old child with a trembling talon. "Not warriors or threats. I see that now. Understanding comes too late for them," Chen replied, her voice steady despite the weight of memory. "But perhaps not too late for others who might have shared their fate." Beyond the memorial chamber's transparent dome, the first ships of the Galactic Survey Initiative prepared for departure. The joint scientific mission, crewed by members of 27 species including humans, would explore regions previously deemed off-limits by Hegemony doctrine. Their mandate: to seek out emerging civilizations not for conquest or exploitation, but for protection and eventual partnership. General Maya Okonkwo, now silver-haired but still commanding in her formal dress uniform, joined them at the viewport. The first expedition includes 3 descendants of Europa colonists, she noted. They carry their ancestors' scientific curiosity rather than any desire for vengeance. The cycle breaks, Zex Terrell acknowledged. My species believed power came from dominating others. Humans showed the galaxy that true strength emerges from cooperation. In the station's central gallery, representatives from the former evolutionary vanguard stood alongside coalition military leaders who had once been their sworn enemies. The Kuloth Reformation movement, led by younger officers inspired by smuggled human literature and philosophy, had ultimately overthrown their own leadership from within. Now they worked to reintroduce artistic and philosophical pursuits long suppressed under military rule. Dr. Krenver, honored as the conscience of the Kuloth, presented Ambassador Chen with a crystal containing recovered artworks from the pre-Vanguard era. We are relearning what your species never forgot, that creation matters more than destruction. The ceremony transitioned to the formal activation of the Galactic Historical Truth Commission. Academics and witnesses from all species would work together to document both atrocities and achievements from their shared past. No civilization's actions would remain hidden. No species would bear collective guilt for their leaders' decisions. The painful process of reconciliation had already begun on dozens of worlds. As Jupiter's majestic storms rolled beneath the station, Jacob Chen's grandson Thomas activated the final component of the memorial, a quantum projection system that displayed images of Europa as it had been. Children playing beneath transparent domes, scientists exploring icy tunnels, engineers planning expansions for a colony that represented humanity's first steps toward a broader destiny. They died before knowing we were not alone in the universe, Thomas Chen observed, yet their deaths ultimately connected us to the galactic community in ways no peaceful contact could have accomplished. Ambassador Chen nodded solemnly. The Dawn Accord ensures that no species will again face extinction for being different or unpredictable. The diversity that the Vanguard feared becomes the foundation of our shared future. Beyond the memorial station, ships of the new Galactic Accord patrolled peacefully. Their mission had transformed from warfare to protection, embodying the principle that had emerged from humanity's greatest tragedy, the recognition that all sentient life, regardless of origin, deserved to chart its own evolutionary journey among the stars.